Hi, I'm Mort Cooper. Change Your Voice, Change Your Life. In studio with me is Dr. John Curtis. He's the co-host. We've been talking about why voices fail. And we've had some interesting discussion about the treatment of patients I've seen while I was at UCLA Medical Center. Fascinating journey and a challenging odyssey. Do you want to recall, or do you want to ask questions about what we were talking about?
No, I'll just ask you, just a couple questions about, your discovery of the contact ulcer granuloma and how it's treated. And you claim that, you were working with a very respected, fine, just competent surgeon named Henry J. Rubin, who had actually treated contact ulcer granuloma 17 times, 17 different surgeries.
Right.
And the patient was exasperated.
The word could be devastated, but Henry...
Litigious almost.
Yeah. Henry Rubin is deceased. He was one of the finest ear, nose, and throat doctors I've ever worked with, a straight arrow, a wonderful surgeon, gifted. And he apparently was of the view that a surgical procedure for contact ulcer granuloma was appropriate. But he had a patient whom he had done 17 surgeries on, and the patient was suicidal. He was strangled. He had pain when he tried to talk. Even when breathing, he had pain, because a contact ulcer is like between my two thumbs. In the middle, that's the posterior third of the vocal folds. And the anterior portion over here has one kind of tissue and a different kind of tissue between these cartilages. There are 4 paired muscles in the larynx, and one is singular, and the one is singular between these cartilages.
You get a little technical right now. I think you're losing people.
I'm going to get very straight on this. So you can have problems if you have that growth, and the growth creates pain because it moves from one angle, one cartilage to the other, and it creates a pit or fossa, and it's on denuded tissue, which means that there's no
it's like raw tissue, right?
Yeah, raw tissue. It's a condition that one woman by the name of Georgiana Peacher figured out for the first time in the history ever in the medical field. She's did a study for the PhD, and she found that by changing the pitch, raising the pitch of voice, she found a cure to this condition. Nobody ever had reported a single cure ever before her dissertation. And it's a fascinating study. I knew about her, and when I was at UCLA Medical Center on the staff to begin with, I used her material and followed through, and sure enough, it did wonders. At the same time, when I was on the staff, we had a young man, the Russian, and he talked like this. And he would say, what a pain I have. He always used the technique. And I developed the from the Russian. And by raising the pitch using Georgiana Peacher's approach, the contact ulcer on this area of the arytenoid, banging into the other area, which was raw, disappeared, and the strangle disappeared, the pain disappeared, and he had a perfectly normal voice. And now he had a baritone voice instead of talking, what I say. And I developed the technique by this person.
That was a method that you used in order to give the voice a voice lift, a little bit of a lift?
Yes, very simple,
okay.
natural.
So what did you do before your Ruski patient, the Ruski, what did you do before to raise the pitch?
Well, I work with a lot of patients, but the Russian didn't have the ear. And we had success with other contact
But how did you
patients.
raise pitch before the Russian clued you in to use the...
We used the piano at that time, in 1961.
Oh, really?
It was dated, and I'm a musician. I play the piano, and I take them up to medical lounge and show them the range. I can hear what they were doing and raise the pitch 3-4 notes.
And you didn't really have a technique at that point before that?
It was archaic, and it was very, very primitive. And some patients had musical background, others had the ability to do what I wanted. Sometimes they were a little slow, but they can get out of the lower throat and get up into the face, raising the pitch in the contact ulcer granuloma, and the fossa disappeared. Here's the Russian. What do you want me to do? Every time he said a phrase or a sentence, he would say, and talk down here, and the pain was killing him, he said. So I found the technique, and I used it, and I report in books and across the country. It's a wonderful technique. It's natural. Today they're using implants of cadaver skin to put into the vocal folds to create a voice lift, the same voice lift that the does naturally, and it's free, and anybody can use it.
I think Peak Wu uses the cadaver grafts.
Yes, in New York City.
Yeah, New York City, and it's a very sophisticated procedure because I understand that that tissue is highly refined. It comes from a very high-tech sort of pharmaceutical biotech company, and he's very impressed with it. But then there's a fellow by the name of Robert Sadeloff. I think you know who he is.
They're nose and throat doctors. He's in Philadelphia.
And Sadeloff, who I believe used to be the editor of the journal Voice.
He is
He's still the editor?
He is the editor of the Journal of Voice.
Okay, that's the Journal of the American Speech and Hearing Association.
No, it's not.
What is it, the journal?
No, it's a journal that...
freestanding journal?
No, yes, it's freestanding. And the medics basically run it.
It's a prestigious journal, to say the least.
It's one of the most prestigious.
Okay. But here's the part that I think is interesting to people, is that he's telling people now to add something to the vocal cords. He thinks that aging vocal cords are responsible for deterioration in voice, and he said that if you add collagen back into the vocal cords, just like you would do in your face, like a cosmetic surgeon would, then you can, in effect, rejuvenate or transform the voice into one that's much more youthful. Is that your experience?
No. No, I think it detracts from the ability of the individual to use the right voice when you put a substance into the vocal folds, because people have difficulty using the right voice to begin with. All they have to do is go, if you're talking all the way in the lower throat, and that's what he's talking about, where the voice doesn't have a younger sound or a bright sound or an open sound. Just go, and talk up here instead of all the way down here. Another way, which of course makes it obvious that you don't need collagen, you don't need bone and stents and so forth that they put in. Incidentally, I'm going to come back to what I'm saying in just a moment. One of the finest ear, nose, and throat doctors in the country, Gerald Burke, the chairperson of the Head and Neck Division, put in stents for Pete Wilson, who was then involved in running for the nomination for the presidency. Lost his voice, basically. He had to have the stents taken out after the third go-around, and that's what putting something in does. Now, going back to the answer to how to get a normal voice, it's a C-spot, and the C-spot is it's called the instant voice press or the Cooper C-spot. Dr. Curtis, just take your finger and put it at the bottom of your breastbone, and with your lips closed, go and point to where you feel the resonance.
I feel a buzz right up in the nose.
It's as simple as that. You just got a voice lift. It's God-given, it's natural, it's wondrous, and it's amazing. So you're talking down here and you go, it's telling you where your natural, full, easy voice is. In seconds, you don't need any injection into the vocal folds, whether it's collagen, paraffin, Teflon, silicone, gel foam, stents, and anything else.
So you don't really add anything into when you treat patients. I mean, you're not really inserting anything into their vocal cords or adding something. You're actually retraining them to give them a voice lift.
It's already there. It's God-given, and it's waiting for somebody to tap into it. This answer is so simple. A fellow by the name of Occam, you know who Occam was?
William of Occam. Well, but people.
And what did Occam say?
Look,
it's called Occam's razor.
Yeah, and he
what did he say?
Look, Occam was a very simple guy. He said, look, give me a simple explanation. It's preferred over the ones that are more mysterious and esoteric.
Yeah, he wasn't a simple guy. He was sophisticated, who realized the simple answer is the best answer. And the one that's simple is you take the finger and put, and your voice goes right up into the face. You don't need any injection into the vocal folds with any of the substances.
Like some people will say, look, that's fine, I can hit my C-spot, the voice pops up, but then as soon as I start talking again, I can't keep going around jiggling below my breastbone in the C-spot and going, when you're in a regular conversation.
It's very simple. One, two,
so
three.
How do you get the voice to stay elevated?
You get the patient to tune into the voice. Use a tape machine, and you have them just on the tape machine, 1, 2, and 7, 1, 2. You get them to put the voice up in the face and hear themselves, because they don't hear themselves as they actually are. And it's very simple to change the voice. It takes a little doing to hold on to it.
They learn to speak, with the elevation and pitch.
It's very minor.
And yet the patient doesn't hear it as minor. They hear it as very major. In many instances, they're horrified by the new voice.
That's
they don't
correct.
like the new sound of the voice.
No, they don't.
Now, did Georgiana Peacher discover the voice image back in 1947?
No.
Did she deal with the voice image?
No.
Did a fellow by the name of Virgil Anderson at Stanford University deal with the voice image?
He mentioned the image as a put-off. He did mention it.
Okay, so
in his textbook on the principles of voice.
In his
Training the Speaking Voice.
best-selling book, The Principles of the Speaking Voice.
The Principles of Training the Speaking Voice, right?
Principles of Training the Speaking Voice. Anderson did mention the image.
Yes.
But did he really comprehend the extent to which?
No.
Because Anderson, from my understanding, was a bit of an academic. Is that?
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't particularly oriented toward clinical work.
No.
He didn't like the interaction with the patients. Now, part of that interaction is beating your head against the wall, isn't it? I mean, there is a natural inclination for the patients to fight you when you're trying to help them.
Oh, yes.
Now, why do patients?
Well, why do people, when
fight?
they're drowning, fight the lifeguard?
Well, they actually swim to the bottom rather than go to the top.
Why do they fight?
Freud has an explanation for that. He calls that the death instinct.
Okay. There's another thing that Freud talked about, resistance.
Yeah.
People do not like to change. They're habituated to what they're doing, and they want to continue that. So if you're talking all the way down here, and somebody tells you to and you use the C-spine, it goes up there, or you say as though you agree with somebody sincerely and spontaneously, you don't like that sound. And you wonder why, when you talk this way, you're going from doctor to doctor and they're telling you it's reflux oriented, you have reflux, and that's why you have this raspy voice. And so you try reflux drugs, and God bless you if it works. I don't find it working, and the patients taking the reflux tell me it doesn't work for them. Or they're looking to have some substance, as Peek Wu, a well-known ear, nose, and throat doctor in New York City, is now putting a cadaver skin pulverized into the vocal folds to get a voice lift, to make your voice brighter and fuller and richer. And Sadloff, he's a very gifted surgeon. He's a very well-known and famed ear, nose, and throat doctor. He is putting in collagen, but they're not getting to the source of why the voice is not sounding right.
I read about Sadloff's techniques not that long ago, and yes, I read about it in the New York Times. And the New York Times is an interesting publication because just a little while ago, a year or so ago...
You read about it in the New York Times?
Yes,
Sadloff?
I read about Sadloff. And I also...
I didn't read about Sadloff in the New York Times.
Oh, you didn't?
No, where did you read it?
Was that USA Today, or was it the... I know we read about Sadloff.
No, that was a newspaper in New York, a not well-known newspaper.
Oh, maybe it was the New York Post.
That carried Peek Wu, and
they talk about Sadloff and Peek Wu in new techniques and the use of cadaver
No,
skin.
I think that was another article for Robert Sadloff countering what Peek Wu is doing. They're fighting about putting implants into the vocal folds, folks. They're medicalizing our voices. And they're saying the reason our voices fail is because, why?
Well, look, this is the title of the show today. They're saying, look, this is a medical condition. The vocal cords wear out, and essentially they need to be plumped up. So if we can,
like that.
If we can plump them up with collagen, then
with cadaver skin.
They claim that they can rejuvenate. I mean, make the person's voice sound more youthful.
But now, you can do that in seconds by just raising the pitch of your voice with the or with the C spot.
Now,
I don't understand why they're doing what they're doing.
That is that you have patients that do come in which develop what is called geriatric voice. Now, isn't geriatric voice a condition that is similar in many ways to the development of spasmodic dysphonia?
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, and what is spasmodic dysphonia?
Well, that's a strangled voice.
Can you imitate it?
Well, that's a voice where somebody talks like that. Like
Point to where you feel it.
It's really down in this lower throat.
That's where all strangled voices are. What they've done is attempt to put substances in. Now it's the current favorite is Botox.
He calls it a voice lift, Sadloff.
Peek Wu calls it a voice lift.
He can give you a voice lift. So why the need for vocal rehabilitation if you can simply go and they can do a simple injection, put some collagen into your vocal cords. Why go through this whole rehab process if this is just as effective?
Well, the collagen lasts for 3 to 6 months, and in the BBC interview that I was involved in, I was handed a printout saying that it's $17,500 for the collagen shot. I couldn't believe that. That's an astronomical sum.
If you get a collagen shot,
I still can't believe that that's what they may be charging
the
for.
The average price of a collagen shot, and I was reading this on a the American, I think it was the American Plastic Surgery Society, Association of Plastic Surgeons, said that the average collagen shot is $400.
No, I couldn't believe.
So why would a collagen shot be? What did you say?
$17,500.
That doesn't make any sense. It's
no,
$400.
I know. The BBC gave me that information, interviewed me, and I said, "This is unbelievable. If it's $17,500, and you have to have the shot every 3 to 6 months for life, I mean, this is
that's a nice windfall, isn't it?
Yeah, but the other thing is, aside from the price, why the implant? Because the medics are trained with implants to put things into the vocal folds or to take out growths. And you have Julie Andrews, who had a growth taken out, which resulted in the loss of a singing voice and a lawsuit and that settlement. And you had Walter Cronkite, who had a growth taken out. And it is my view that after that, he had an impaired voice and was hoarse and had to leave the field, the anchor field, much earlier than he would have. And you have Pete Wilson, who had stents put into the vocal folds because he had a benign growth on the vocal folds, and they wanted to plump up the vocal cords structurally, leaving him with an impaired voice.
Was the stent supposed to close the distance between the cords?
To bring them together.
That's what I'm talking about. To bring the
bring
cords
the structure together.
Because his cords were separated.
They were open, right.
So his cords were open in the abductor. They were abducting. Is that correct or not correct?
You're talking to the academics. What do you mean by abducting?
I'm talking about the cords going apart.
Out, yeah.
They were going out.
So they were bringing the
through the stent.
Do you know what a stent is?
Yeah.
What is a stent?
Well, it's a gizmo.
A gizmo.
That's what it is.
All right. It's
like a little bridge, isn't it?
Yeah, in a sense, but they're trying to straighten out the vocal cords with a stent, actually, to bring these cords together, because they believe that when you do that, you can get the voice to work properly. It's like putting in Teflon or silicone, because the cords are open, and they want to bridge the gap when the vocal cords are too open, because then you're talking like this. So they put in these substances believing that the functionality, that the real your voice is going to come out when they do that. But they are talking structurally, bringing it together, but the patient can't use the voice functionally so that you can have a growth. And it's like you have a leg cramp. Do you put in a substance, do you put in Botox, or do you inject collagen or silicone or a stent to do that? No. You simply straighten the heel of your leg and you get rid of the leg cramp. They're trying medically to medicalize voices because the medics are trained to put something in or take something out rather than to use what is correctly. They are not trained in correct voice use, practical voice use, functional voice use, mechanical voice use. It's like driving the car with the brake on, and what they're saying is it's not the brake that's the problem.
Like driving it in reverse also?
Yes. That is not the problem. They're saying there's something wrong with you. You have a disease. It's not the mechanical attribute. They're saying there's something wrong with you. You have a disease, you have a virus, you have a molecular biological problem, you have a basal ganglia problem. They're going to medicalize you to drive that car. Understand the humorous analogy, hopefully, I'm bringing, because you would say, that's ridiculous. How can you drive the car with the full brakes on in reverse trying to go forward? But the medical paradigm has it, from my experience, that they are of the view that voices fail because there's something medically wrong with you, rather than that you don't know how to use your voice. You don't know how to use your voice because after puberty you never had any lessons to drive the voice.
Didn't your old boss over at UCLA Medical Center say that he felt that the whole field was ass backwards.
His field was ass backwards, and he also said that of my field.
But was he referring at that point to the fact that they're treating, basically, the field is treating the symptoms and not the causes?
That's right. He was saying that of my field, but I said, Chief, that's Jack Pressman, a great guy. He's the chairman. Chief, you're doing the same thing in your field.
And isn't treating symptoms rather than the causes to the condition, doesn't that sort of take your eye off the ball if you're trying to treat a condition?
They're taking nodules or polyps or contact ulcers out. But the patient is getting these growths because they're using the wrong voice. These growths come from talking wrong. It's as simple as that. The field knows that. The academics in my field, the medical people know it. But the paradigm involved is no, we will take the growths out, and then you just talk. Well, the problem comes back because you've been talking wrong before. And then there's an additional problem in my field because not too many are trained to do practical voice. In my field as well as in the medical field, they're not trained. So what happens is if they're not trained properly or competently, then the growths come back and the surgeons do another surgery saying, you see, it's a medical problem and you're wasting your time doing voice rehabilitation. Mm-hmm. But if you do correct voice rehabilitation, you overcome the cause of the growth, the nodule, the polyp, the contact ulcer, the tired voice, the strangled voice like that. You overcome the premalignancy called papillomatosis, which I was peer-reviewed and indicated was related and associated with misuse. You overcome bowed vocal cords. The neurologists and some of my finest colleagues said, no, it's a neurological problem. It has nothing to do with misuse. It has everything to do with misuse. They're on the wrong paradigm. But we get along because they allow me with an arched eyebrow, arched, to look at me and say, look, Cooper, you can't get cures of these conditions. I said, I have been getting cures. I've been reporting in peer-reviewed articles and reporting it in my field, medical fields. They just arch the eyebrow and bide with me as, being off the surface.
Are we talking about somebody who's been symptom-free for longer than a month?
Oh, yeah,
a month?
Yeah.
How long have these people
5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years, where they have bowed vocal cords, they have strangled voices, where they have papillomatosis, which they were told is due to a virus, which the study was done by Elman in 23, and that study is flawed, and the top ear, nose, and throat doctors have indicated that.
I talked with a medical colleague from the University of Michigan, a well-known guy. I think he studied under Robert Bastian of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Norman Hokikian.
Yeah.
And he treated a patient. You have a patient in common with him. Mm-hmm. I believe she was treated with at least 2 Botox shots.
Right.
And she had lost her voice. And
she got bowed vocal cords.
And I talked to Dr. Hokikian, and I asked him about her. Although he said he didn't remember her, I said that when she presented back to you, she returned back to your office, she was cured of the spasmodic dysphonia that you yourself had said was not curable.
Yeah. He diagnosed her with abductor and adductor.
And yet you,
the worst.
You asked her whether she wanted further Botox treatments, indicating that you were going to be treating the underlying neurology of the condition, but the condition was cured. So why would he automatically assume that there was a neurological basis to it?
Because that's the entire medical community, folks. They believe that it's a medical problem, a neurological problem. It's due to basal ganglia problems, molecular, biological cause, you name it. They do not understand, from my experience, that it is not a medical problem. It's a functional problem. You're talking wrong. You get the strangled voice. And if you raise the pitch, put it up in the face, you can escape from the strangled voice. If you change all these voices of the vocal cord, they talk like this. I did a biopsy study in 1963 at UCLA Medical Center. It was published in peer review in 1971. They had to check all the doctors to make sure. It's a revolutionary study. But I'm the only one apparently reporting cures of strangled voices for 30 years, PAP of the vocal cords, bowed vocal cords, unilateral cord paralysis.
Are you disseminating these findings in any local or state journals or national ones?
In nose and throat journals, the American Speech and Hearing Journal. But it's pointless because the medics are, in my field, are of the view, they're solid in that these problems are basically neurological, the medical, and so forth. So I only see a few patients who find cures. Dr. Larry Spira, who worked on his papillomatosis, he had 3 surgeries. It didn't help. It was exacerbating, making it worse. He's been cured for over 25 years. He is not alone. Strangled voices, people who are said to be hopeless in my field, they've been cured for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years, diagnosed by the top people in the medical community, top medical centers, cured, lasting cures. But I'm not acceptable to the medical community or to my field because this is not possible, they say.
Well, they say
these conditions
are not curable.
That's right. So why do voices fail?
Who said that these conditions aren't curable? I understand that there was a position statement made in the, I believe it was the National Spasmodic Dysphonic Association newsletter some years ago that indicated that that spasmodic dysphonia was not curable. Is that true?
It's been made all over the place.
Okay, so who made those statements?
The medical community.
Did you ever find out who was responsible in that group of people, those intelligent geniuses?
It's the top of the, that was Roe Brumlick and Moore in 1960. But let me bring it to you. We have 30 seconds and 30 seconds. A president of the National Spasmodic Dysphonic Association had Botox. Somebody told him to raise the pitch to his face, and he didn't need any more Botox shot. This is the president of the National Spasmodic Dysphonic Association. 30 seconds left, Dr. Curtis.
Why I thought you said that the president is Dot Sowerby, who's afflicted with SD.
She replaced Mr. Noble, yeah.
Well, do you think that he was a bad example for them because he was cured of his SD?
Yeah, by changing from the lower throat to the face. So what do you want to summarize?
Well, I want to say that why voices fail.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you have to make the call, but I know that there's a lot of other explanations besides the neurological and the medical
They fail
ones.
because we misuse them, folks. That's my take. Thank you very much for joining with me. The title of the show?
It's Why Voices Fail.
Misuse, not neurological cause per se. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they see it one way, you see it a different way.
We have 2 different sides of the fence. And they are not about to accept cures of these hopeless problems that they say are hopeless because they insist it's hopeless from the medical point of view since they're not trained in voice and they're not about to change their paradigm. I understand.
Well, what's fascinating is that when confronted with a patient like Hokigian, who saw his patient, his ex-patient, present to him without any symptoms of spasmodic dysphonia, instead of going, "Oh my God, this is unbelievable! How did this happen? How did you do this? Let's get that person. Let's promote this information. Let's get the word out. Let's publish it all over the journals."
And what did he do? He denied it and said
he said that he